it, and it wasn't.
Oh no. And that almost, it's like, what's it called? I'm forgetting the phrase, but it's like,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
you got it,
Yes.
man. Yeah.
Yep.
For those of you just joining us, we're discussing about how it can be so easy to make a quick thumbnail or paint without expectation. But then once we start making something that we want to frame, we just lock up. Has anyone else that's just come in, like anyone else experienced that?
I think I spent way too much time on the thumbnail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't have the quickness of the thumbnail down.
Mhm. Well, how do you feel about the thumbnail as a piece of artwork when you're finished with it, Suzanne?
I like the fort,
Uh-huh.
the windows, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I was just explaining that I've had a couple of students that have really done great with their thumbnails, but then they freeze up when they move up. And so what I've been doing with one student in particular is I've been having her slowly increase the size and do thumbnail after thumbnail. And she was working on a piece the other day and going, it's a framer, it's a framer. No, it's a thumbnail, it's a thumbnail, even though the piece is like this big. And so I think a lot of it is our expectations. But anyway, let me see. Do we have everyone here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think. Oh, well, Susan will probably be coming in later, but I'm going to go ahead and start class, our one last class together. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have worked you hard, maybe even a little too hard. So forgive me if I did.
My opinion, it's been really been worth it. And I know I explained that I was also taking to you, Kathy, that I was also taking a light and shadow class at the same time.
Mhm.
And then Wynn and I are taking watercolor at the studio school, and all of these things are just dovetailing.
Right.
They all talk about color theory. They all talk about values and making things pop and complementarity. And so it's really been wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm always a little nervous when I hear of students taking another art class at the same time, because I'm like, oh, it's going to contradict, or I'm going to look.
No,
See,
no.
apprehension, right?
I
Well,
mean, there's one teacher who says, start where you feel most comfortable, and another one who says, always do the ground first, put a wash down, then you can dive in. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to do what feels comfortable. If
right.
that means putting a wash down first, then I will.
Well, and I think taking all these classes is great, or even with one instructor or a bunch, because then it's like you're learning, you're increasing your toolbox each time,
Always,
and
yeah.
you decide, I don't want to use that tool, or I do want to use
Hmm.
that tool. So I
Yeah.
had one guy, Bob Hale, I haven't seen him in a while, but he was a professional illustrator for 30 years up in New York, and he would just show up to class. Barbara, I don't know, was he in our class?
What's his name? Bob?
Bob?
I don't know.
Oh, well, he would show up and kind of do the lesson if he felt like it. And he would, I mean, just fly out with like 20 thumbnails that were to die for every class. But that was his speed, that was his style. And sometimes he'd listen to what I was teaching, other times he wouldn't. So, I call it a journey.
Kathy, if my only recommendation is if you offer the class again, I'd actually make it 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, I think it was last week, I felt like you could have probably split that
Yeah.
into 2 classes.
I think you're
I
right.
think you had enough to really divide it.
Mhm. I agree, Penny. And this is the first time that I've taught this. So I knew a good amount. It's almost like the only thing worse than having too much information is not having enough.
Right, right.
Right.
So I do think you're right. And the first time I teach a class, there's a saying about writing a story is like driving a car. You know where you want to end up, but you don't quite know how you're going to get there. And that's how this class has been. So I didn't know how much we would cover or in what order. In fact, I changed the order up on a lot of things. Like this lesson we're going to do today, I was going to teach 2 weeks earlier, but then I realized, no, this needs to be the
Mhm.
so anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. But I will, a couple of housekeeping things, and we already kind of slid into one. I would love any feedback that you have. And I really appreciate the, the compliments, but I'm glad that Penny came up with something constructive, stretch it out to 6 weeks. But if there's anything else in regards to Google Classroom or Facebook or sending out the lesson plan early or any of the attachments, if there was anything that was confusing, let me know. Even if you don't have a suggestion for it, that would help me a lot. And this is a class, I think, hopefully in the after times, we're getting into them sometime. If I taught this in person, I probably, well, I would like to teach it in person. I'd like to, be able to fine tune it. Okay. That's one thing. So
I do have a question.
Sure. What's up?
Is our Facebook page going to still be there when the class is over?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it up forever.
Okay.
I'm not big into proprietary,
Okay.
competitive stuff. And I think you're going to have access to the slide room for a while.
Okay.
Slide shows. So, good question.
Okay.
And keep posting on Facebook. I mean, just because class is over, I've had someone post on one of my watercolor pages from a year ago, and that's kind of neat because it keeps the community going. So I will keep those up. And let's see, email me. I'm going to give you some smaller assignments if you want to do them. And I'll critique them until about this Sunday. Like Sunday night, you can send them to me. And of course, you can post them on Facebook page. The final thing is, I talked to a couple of you about this, and I just haven't gotten it together. I think I'm going to be offering a drawing class coming up in about a week and a half. If you're interested, it'll be 4 weeks. I probably won't cram as much into it, but it's going to be on Thursday night because I have had some people who work full time who really want to take classes from me. So I'll send out something probably in the next couple of days about it, but just thought I'd let you know if you're interested in that at all. Okay. All right. Now we can start with our official class. How did you guys feel about the lady with the letter and the window?
I personally felt sorry for her. The more I looked at the photograph, I thought, this poor thing. I figured she'd gotten, I felt like maybe that was a map behind her head. So I was imagining that she was reading a letter. She was pregnant and she was reading the letter from her husband that he wasn't coming home. And so as I kept painting her,
That's pretty detailed.
Terrible sadness for her.
Oh, so you're putting this really strong narrative on it.
Wrote a screenplay.
I know. Well, you can see why there's writers that have done whole novels. There's like one based on Girl with an Earring, done by the same artist, Vermeer. And actually, I read a review of this. The woman, the name of the painting was Woman in Blue Reading a Letter. So obviously, I wasn't going to tell you that beforehand. But it was a pretty misogynistic thing. It's like, oh, she's wearing this very that kind of pregnancy look. I think she's pregnant, but that was somewhat of the style. And actually, it was a map behind her. And there's pearls on the table. You may not be able to tell, but the person who was critiquing said, well, she's obviously having an affair because pearls are a sign of lust because they come from oyster, so it's just so interesting. But I'm really looking forward to showing you guys those. And I do appreciate you, putting up with the windows, okay? Because I know that was a challenge, but
Difficult.
yeah. It's going to be a foray into some abstract art I'm going to show you in just a minute. So once again, please, one last prayer to the technology gods as I screen share. Or did someone have a comment?
Oh, I just was going to say, I actually thought the windows were fun because I kind of just tried to take the pressure off a little bit. And then I was using this value scale thing with all the colors. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, if I want the low value, then it has to be yellow. And if I want the medium value, it has to be purple. I don't know, it gave me a roadmap that, and then I was just like, it doesn't matter what color it is, because then once I desaturated the picture, the values were right. It was really kind of fun.
Yeah.
To see if it would work.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, here we go. I'm going to switch over and hopefully you'll see my screen in a minute.
Yep.
Something says Little Wheels, Big Grid.
Yep.
Which is not the slideshow we're going to do yet. Here we go. Do you see something that says student work?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'm loading that up and let's get started. All right. I love the way, and I'm just jumping into the student work. I really like the way that this person presented the color values right here and really go through the scale quite well and then present it up here. I love the way the black just kind of hugs in right there. And then they did the same thing here, but got a lot more detail going on with the purples and the blues. It's a lot more complex. And I bet you anything they did this cooler one than this warmer one. The only thing I would have done different was I would have asked them to take out the tape in between so we could see the colors more on their own. But great value scale. Again, a thumbnail does not have to be very developed, but if it becomes developed, that's great too. And I believe, let's see, whose is this? I think I know.
Mine.
Oh, Barbara, I really like it. I think they turned out well. You were concerned about I forget.
My wavy windows. Yeah.
Well, now that you mention it, I see it. But obviously, if I couldn't remember, I think the values really have stuck well, and I think it gives it some character. So I think.
Well, the reason the tape is there is for some reason on the one on the left, the wall just kept going and going, and I don't know why I had so much wall, so I covered it up.
That's the way to do it. All right. You can see how like the blue detracts at first until
I didn't think about that.
That's part of the but that's actually interesting. Painter's tape is blue, so the painters will remove it when they're painting a house. But that's why artist's tape is white. Right? Interfere with the color. Yeah, that your nuts and grass.
I didn't even think of that.
Well, I didn't either till it drove my professor nuts in grad school because I got the painter's tape because I use so much because I'm cheap. Anyway, but well done. Oh, and there we go. It's the same one. We can see it desaturating, kind of like Amy was just saying. It successfully hangs as a successful painting. The value.
Yeah, but my radiators are different. That's interesting.
They're a little bit different. You're right. Yep, you can definitely see that. But I thought that maybe was a planned.
Oh yeah.
Plan change.
It was planned.
Okay, and this one, wow, really nicely done. This almost looks like gouache, just highly pigmented application, and very organized. You know, we know this is a somewhat of a secondary triad and a split complementary. Very organized person here, and this looks like analogous, even though I covered it up with their black and white.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. And is this is yours, Wen, right?
Yes, the baby poop brown is always mine.
It's gold.
Yes, it's
Baby on the screen.
Well, you can see from the down here with the black and whites, the desaturated one, you cannot see a big difference in value between this great turquoise here and this baby poop. In fact, I would say none. Isn't that funny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the desaturations are much better than the colored ones. But I was pleased with that. I mean, there was I learned something from that. So yeah,
Right.
It's okay.
Great. Well, and again, very organized down here, the way you made your grid and then plugged in the colors. And we're actually going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Isn't this nice?
Mm-hmm.
This makes me think of the beach, you know, something
Mhm.
tropical. In fact, it would have been a fun exercise to take these windows individually and say, where do you think this was taken place? You know, they might say the Bahamas here, the baby poop brown, you know, probably not the Bahamas. And again, the radiator, I like the way they played in the lights and the dark radiator. I didn't even notice the radiator when I decided to give you that photo, but it really turned into a nice compositional and color note opportunity. All right. And do you mind if I ask who this is?
That's mine, Susan's.
Okay, great. Oh, hey, Susan.
Hey.
Hi, Susan.
And any comments or notes about this?
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I just struggled this week with time. I ran out of time. My kids needed me to babysit a lot, and they're going to be needing me to babysit more. Hint, hint, hint. So anyway,
No. Well,
Yeah.
it's nice that you can be there for them. And, you know,
Sure.
that's when thumbnails come along handy. You know, if you feel like you're pressed for time, you don't have to make a big, gigantic thing, you know, just keep your stuff out. And as you're walking by or Ivy's taking a nap, right. Just throw it out there sometime. But yeah, I understand.
You in class?
I wasn't supposed to admit that or to talk about that yet,
Oh, okay.
but that's okay. So don't put it on Facebook. Congratulate me or anything, okay?
Okay, I won't. Now look at this. Wow. I believe these, I'm picking on people now. Is this Amy's or is this still
It
Susan?
is. And
Amy.
I have a confession. It actually was a mistake. I was, I think I was going to try doing the one on the left. And then I forgot what I was doing and got distracted. And so it turned into the brighter one with just the triadic. Anyway, I played with it and it was fun.
Goes there, up in the door frame. Orange.
Chatting. If you could put mute on, that would be great. Well, I'm sorry, Amy. Well, so you're saying this was the first one and then this was the second one, or did you put red over this?
I think I did the triadic first.
Mhm.
And then I went, oh, wait, I wanted that to be the split complementary. So then I just did the split complementary. And then when I looked back at them, they looked so similar. I said, well, that's funny. So then I did a fourth one because I wanted to try another combination. So anyway,
Good. I'm glad
it was fun.
with it. Yeah. And you know, sometimes, I mean, the best laid plans, right? I think it's
Yeah.
easy to go in to a painting with the battle plan, but toward the end of my, you know, the painting's time or my time with it, I usually have lost the plan. I have no idea what it is. I'm letting the painting paint itself. Yeah.
There you go.
I really like that. I think the one on the right with the red is really crisp, and it doesn't matter to me, you know, like, I mean, whatever you think that is a flaw, I don't see it.
Thank you.
Colors, I think it's cool.
Well, and I really liked the other window that had the waviness. There was kind of a
Mhm.
softness, kind of a quirkiness to it. And this looks very crisp, you know, almost feel like
Yeah.
that would touch you. I guess the red too, you know, but
Yeah.
it's interesting how this same image can be used over and over again. And again, your treatment of the radiator down here kind of alludes to that crisp edge. So, and is this your third one?
That was actually the first one I did. So
Mhm.
with my analogous colors, but.
Okay, great. And I see you hardened up the radiator.
Mhm.
And you know what? That's a nice time saver too. When, you know, your mean art teacher gives you like 85 thumbnails, find shortcuts. Well done. Oh, and this is good. I really like the way this person used colored pencils. And I think, Margaret, is this yours?
Yep, that's me.
All right.
Well, those are fun. Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love the way you worked on doing kind of a color wheel here, a mini color wheel. We're going to be doing,
Color wheel. I didn't know that's what that was, but now I do.
yeah. It's like a mini color wheel, isn't it? And of course, with colored pencils, you don't get quite the same blending going on, but it is, you know, helpful. Like you've got some nice chromatic neutrals here, defining that really dark shape. And I think we talked a little bit in an email about how you felt like the colors were a little bit off. Or is that right? Or was that someone else?
I was surprised with that first one, the orange, green, orange, violet. I mean, I didn't just make it up. I got it off a color wheel, and I know that's a split complementary. But when I looked at it, I thought, yuck. I mean, these colors are not pleasing, and I don't think the red and green one, red, green, blue. Wait, that's the split complementary. The other is the
Mhm.
triad.
This is
Yeah.
triad.
The only one that I find aesthetically pleasing is the blue, violet,
Yeah.
blue, green analogous one.
Yeah, and now it's going to
But
be.
I thought that if you picked them from a color wheel properly, they ought to just come together, and these didn't. So I'm not sure what I did wrong.
Well, and we'll talk more about that later in the exercise we're going to do. But again, part of that might be using the color pencils that don't blend quite as much. And also when you get
Okay.
further away from each other, like analogous, they're all next door. So they're going to
Right,
blend
yeah.
a little easier. Where when you get further away from each other with the triad, you know, that space on the color wheel, depending on the temperature of each color is how they're going to relate together.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a neutral. This is kind of a warm brown. I mean, blue, believe it or not. And then this was a kind of a cool red. So that neutral, cool, and warm might have had a
Yeah.
little something to do with it. But I thought those were fun. These are just wonderful. Feel so.
Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I really like the way the radiator just becomes this little series of repeating
Mhm.
Here,
Yeah,
you
that's
see
nice.
the radiator. Yeah. It becomes a color note. And I don't know who did this.
Me, Suzanne.
Suzanne, this look great. And I'm sorry, the way I asked that, don't I sound like your mom wondering who did this?
No,
Who got that dish? I'm sorry. I should find a more diplomatic way, but I feel like we're friends here. But tell me about how you develop these, because I think they're wonderful.
well, the analogous one, and I told you that by the end of this, I felt like my brain was like twisted around and I couldn't tell complementary from analogous. And I thought maybe I'd slept through part of the last class. Didn't get it. But the split complementary, which is alizarin, green, and orange,
Mhm,
I used some gouache with that, with the alizarin,
mhm,
and that's why the pink came out.
good.
But I really like the blue one the best.
Mhm. I think they both turned out really well. And I meant to, and if I remember, I might do this. Did you send me a desaturated photo? I know
No, I didn't.
well, blurring, if you squint at these, I think they both hold the same value, even with that
Mhm.
fuchsia, which is really what you made here with the gouache and the alizarin. And that
Mhm.
tends to want to take over. Our brains are wired, are coned, to see red first. Red's like, the big signal to run or whatever, fire, blood, I know from our brains, primal brain stems. But if you squint, you can see it's almost the same value as this green, even though it doesn't have the same color, association. But again, I really love what you did here, where you got rid of the whole overall shape of the radiator and just put in these color notes. And when that happens, you can move the color around the piece a little more effectively. Like you've got this orange here, and then you've got orange down here.
Mhm.
Green, moves around a little bit, and the fuchsia doesn't stay in one place. And that's a really important thing to remember about color. If you got your values set, you can kind of be creative with moving your color around. So it's not just like, here's the orange corner, here's the fuchsia corner. So well done.
Thank you.
And there's the window.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I know, isn't that funny? And I couldn't find the exact photo, but look, it's those green shades, orange walls, and then it was that subway tile.
Right.
And there's the radiator. Like I don't know where the same photo. I had a desaturated one, but not the regular one. But see how that green would have taken over, at least in my mind. It did. My shade was the example I did was a puke baby green. So I'd rather do baby puke when the baby puke. And that's what my shade.
I'm not familiar with that.
My head,
Yeah.
from being.
Kathy, I have to say, now I like the picture. I love this picture. I can see why you were attracted to it, but I couldn't see it before when it's just the shapes and black.
Well, I'm actually going to show you some artwork by an artist. We saw this last week.
Yeah.
Got analogous colors. This guy was Richard Diebenkorn, and he lived he was born in the 20s and died in 93. So, we think of masters, we usually think of people that lived hundreds of years ago. Well, Diebenkorn was a master of color, and he actually did some really nice realistic things. I think this is called like drinking a book on the porch. I mean, he didn't name them anything fantastic, but I wanted to show you how abstract art can actually come from observable phenomena. And so he was out in California, and this is, I forget, it's a certain highway somewhere, but you can kind of see the turn off the street, the houses casting shadows, right?
Yeah.
Just bear with me or just say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, when you come down here, you can see he's really interested in those shapes. Okay.
Mhm.
And the same thing up here. And once he breaks down the shapes and is losing the details, it starts to read more as an abstracted pattern or just a design, right? But you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see how he got the idea from the street and then brought it down into these shapes and then these colors. I think he might have gone this way, then this way, then this way. But I wanted you to look at how he moves the color around. So he's got like a spring green here, and then he's got kind of a turquoise green here, and then a nice well, that might be cobalt, but close enough. But see how he's kind of got this analogous thing going on here a little bit. And then he's got an achromatic thing here where it's grays and blacks and whites. And then he comes over here and he pops in some complementary. but he was just a master at moving color around, breaking something down into shapes. And I believe this started, though I couldn't find any of this, when he was in New York in art school. He would wake up late, like most college kids do, and just stare at the ceiling, right? And he had a room with the transom door, you know, the little window over the, and he would watch the shapes and the shadows of it. And apparently he did some studies of that. And in the beginning, you can see the crank handle and all that. But then toward the end, it became a series of triangles, and the frames just became like these, you know, columns. And he inserted the color schemes that he wanted to in it. So that's why also when I saw that window, I was thinking of Richard Diebenkorn, that it would be neat to kind of go in that direction. And did you see or get that abstract feeling? Hopefully with the windows more so than with Woman in Blue. But anyway, I thought that would be interesting to see. And here's some more where he just went completely abstract. I forgot I had that. But see how he's working with tints here, and he's kind of got it's warm up here and then cool tints. And then he's got this intense, you know, more of a saturated color right in the middle. And over here, he's moving around cools and tints for the most part. Then he's got this little warm thing going on here. And this is pretty intense. You know, it's moving the eye with these diagonals and taking you to different color notes. So it's very sophisticated. I think abstract art can be really beautiful if it's got, you know, some planning behind it.
Kathy,
Yes.
I think the one on the left, that lavender where your arrow is now, it looks like a radiator.
Does.
I can see that a little bit, you know.
Maybe that's his version of a radiator in front of a window.
But I can also, I think about like the highway, that California highway we were just looking at, and
Mhm.
based off the Cranston window. See how that looks like it could fold up on the
Mhm.
and be a window.
And I assume he taped those off to get those clean
Yes,
cut lines.
did. And by this
That's really interesting.
yeah, he's using oil paint with some of it. And some of these were huge. Like, you know, if you were standing beside it, you would be like this tall. But I'm not sure. I mean, scale is definitely pretty irrelevant to a lot of his work. But it's a real interesting guy. And I forgot to tell you, I will have a bibliography that I'll send out to you.
Okay.
Hmm?
Good.
But, you know, you can, if you're interested in this, you can read more about these artists. Okay. Now, here we go. The Woman Reading a Letter by Vermeer. And this was done in 1663, 64. And before we jump into it too much, I thought I'd show you, like, I don't know if you can see the pearls are down there. And you guys were right. This wall hanging is a map. This was done when the Dutch were the world premier movers and
Navigators.
shakers, merchants, you know, moving things around the world. And so that kind of alludes to this. And anyway, I wanted to show you about 300 years later, a very similar picture that's at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. This is this is in the McLaughlin collection. That's a new collection of work from Impressionist era that were donated about 3 or 4 years ago. But it's that same timelessness of a beautiful woman looking at something, and then an ambiguous light source coming where, you know, it's probably a window over this way, but it's also an excuse for the artist to bring in other small trinkets. There's a tapestry, these, you know, I guess brass things, and this secretary with the guild in there, which it was during the Gilded Age.
Who painted this?
I should know that, shouldn't I?
Yes. But look how I'm sure it's a he,
Yeah.
has pulled the shades of blue around. There's some blue in the lower part of her jacket. I mean, it reads black at the top, but it's really like Prussian blue. And then the blue in her hat. And then there's a teeny bit of blue in the tapestry so that it pulls you around, and the angle of her head, I mean, just keeps pulling you in a circle. It's really lovely.
It really is. And this
gorgeous
shape of the chair and the arm, you're right. And it's a definite subject matter, but with so many universal possibilities for design and also social commentary on the day. She's taking her gloves either on or off, and she sees this letter. And of course, I've read I'm talking about these male, I'm being, probably sexist myself, but a man saying, oh, is that a letter from her lover? Or is she leaving her husband? I'm like, does it have to be? Maybe she just saw the letter, maybe it's a grocery list.
Grocery list.
Let it be, right? But,
Didn't you saying, damn, I wish I could vote.
yeah, right. Again, you're looking at things from the time. This is embroidered, the padded armrest, and again, this type of secretary desk that was popular at that time. Anyway, let's jump into your work.
Where did you say that painting was, by the way?
It's at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. So I will try and find out. I was actually looking last night, and usually when I take a picture of a painting, I then take a picture of the label right beside it, and I did not this time. I apologize. I do know it was done in the second half of the 19th century. So, but these are great. I love this one.
Nice.
A very nice job of handling this background. That kind of, something's there on the wall hanging, but we don't really need to know what. It just needs to be hinted at. And this light to shadow, the warmth coming forward. And I love this punch of red here. I guess, I don't know if it was a book or what next to those pearls, but well done. And I think, and I'm going to guess, I won't sound like I'm accusing anyone. I think this was Amy's, right?
No, I would.
Barbara.
All right. Nice work.
I will say, I didn't realize she was holding a letter. I thought it was a hanky. So I thought she was kind of sad, and it was a tissue kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. And again, that would go into her husband's left her for the big one.
Yeah.
Right?
Or she's going to go into labor before he gets there, and or she's in labor now.
Right.
Who knows?
Or she wants to vote.
Or she wants to vote.
Like this. I think it was a real good use of warms and cools in this. You move them around the composition very well. You've got this nice circle going on with that application of your warms, and then your cool, like this, really recesses back. And this, the way the light is hitting it, it's very natural. You can tell the light source is coming this way, also by the chairs, not just by her clothing. So well done, Barbara.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I love that this person used resist in the background. In my intro class, I talk about using salt and, like a wax resist, but, I just, and the earth tones in this earthiness about it. I really enjoy this. And she's a blonde in this one. And the highlight on this, this little, it's like a brass pole holding down this big tapestry. And I believe, if I'm right, was this Suzanne's?
Yes, it is. Yes.
All right. And any comments or?
I just really love that. I love those colors.
Lovely.
I think it gives more of a sense of contemplation. Sometimes those muted tones, and it makes the work a little more psychological, at least to me.
I like what you did with her hair, Suzanne.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, the ringlets kind of coming down. Yeah. Did you have any comments about painting this or the exercise?
I don't like the way I used the blue on the top of her dress, particularly. I probably should have done that in a darker gold.
Yeah. And there's nothing like having your artwork on display before you see things too, right? Have you ever noticed that?
Exactly.
I have yet to do an art show where I don't want to, at the opening, take it down and unframe it and rework something. But I don't think this is the case. I can see why you would feel that, but I think this light, it really helps to show the light source, and the fact that you accent this highlight here with that gold also helps with the light, figuring out.
And this is the first time I've seen kind of what the green thing on the left is. To me, that just looked like a pile of fabric. And yet here it's either an armchair, which it wouldn't be because of the period, or a desk, a table of some sort, and I never saw that before. So thank you.
There you go. All right.
See, it's a blob.
That's pretty.
I love that.
Oh, isn't it nice? And
Mhm.
sorry, Wynn, I don't think I had the whole black and white that you sent, but I love the fact that you sent desaturated photos.
Mhm.
And I love the brushwork on this.
I
Yeah,
do too. I love that and the color. Oh,
Yeah, it's very fine.
yeah. I think
Well, none of the rest of you saw this picture as it actually is, because clearly she had on turquoise. There was just no other choice.
I really like it.
Thank
What
you.
I love is whatever that thing is in the dark purple. It looks like fringe from a blanket.
Yeah.
yes.
Cool.
I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah, it could have been, and actually tapestries were used, also as tablecloths. Well, not as thick as tapestries, but at that time, because in Holland and the Netherlands, that was a center of world trade, and that's why things were so luxurious. If you ever see the big collars on people from then, and the Dutch wives would have oysters and lemons and oranges and cinnamon to show that exoticness. So and part of that would also be these gorgeous, sumptuous rugs and fabrics
Mhm.
that almost would tie into the aesthetic at the time. I really love the way that you defined the books here. And then you've got this little spot here that almost, I don't know, I really like it. It's not,
It's supposed to be a shadow, but the water must have water definitely got away from me there. But
Mhm. Well, I don't know. I really like what it has
Mhm.
do. There's a slight ambiguity about this that I really enjoyed, that your intensity of color kind of balanced out. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, great. Well done. And then I do like the way that you've got the crisp edges and the more pigmented application here in the corner. So a lot going on there. All right.
Hmm.
Yeah. I really
Ooh.
enjoy this. Very bright and a lot going on. I also like the two thumbnails over here and the way that these were pulled out. So the artist would know as the application gets waterier. Yeah, I can't even, more watery. I can't even talk.
wetter.
Thank you. More aqueous.
Yes, great word.
Right. And it sounded smart. It would change, the presence of the color. And also the dark here and the way it kind of repeats here, nice folds. But I believe, Margaret, is this yours?
That's me. Yeah.
Okay. And I remember what were we talking a little bit about this, or maybe it was the windows with the color.
I'm happier with the way these colors came together. And of course, this is watercolor and they were pencils. So right there tells me something, right?
Right. Well, and also too, in this exercise, if you see something either in your work or someone else's work, like, wow, I really like the way those colors play together. Remember them, take a note, and use them again in some other work. Let's see, but yeah, I thought those were well done, and I like to see how it developed through these thumbnails over there. Okay, and these are someone else's thumbnails. I really like what they did by using the color swatches that I forced on you last week. I had you glued down. In fact, see, there's mine all glued down. I did my homework with that, and I kept some loose. But I like that. It takes you back to those days where you had to, maybe if you were building a house or something, you had to pick too many colors. But laying them side by side to see if they would work before even attempting these gorgeous quick thumbnails. And I believe, is this yours, Penny?
Yes.
And any other comment or about this process or how you went about it using the paint chips?
Well, I guess I'm more on the other end doing the quickie thumbnails. So it did help though, having the colors right up there. And I did desaturate them. I didn't send them to you. So it was helpful to look at the color chips.
Good.
And I had fun with that one on the right because I was using colors I don't normally use.
And I think they both worked out successfully. It was funny because I was biking the Cap Trail when you sent these to me, and it was really sunny. So I was like, I'm not sure what that is, but it looks great. So then I got home and I spiked longer than I ever had. So I'm sure my brain wasn't thinking carefully, but I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I saw the paint chips. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. But again, I love the fact that you use your thumbnails just to get your idea down and see if it works. And this is almost a good first step to do that, you know, to lay the color chips next to each other. And I believe, yep, this is your finished one, isn't it?
Wow.
Oh,
And I
Oh,
think
that's lovely.
Actually, Kathy, I sent you a second one. Do you remember how we discussed how it was too dark behind her head? I
yes.
might have been too late.
Oh, yes, that's right. Let me see if I can find it. We discussed, and this happens a lot of times when you're working in a more intense painting, you'll have all these considerations. And then when it's done and up, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I wish I had taken care of something else. And I think we discussed how this was just
Too dark.
too dark, that it was.
Well, what happened was at the very end, I decided I thought I had too much burnt sienna. So I took some burnt umber and I put that dark to the left of her face. And then I, put some in the back. And then you said that you thought it was competing with her face.
Well, and
So I actually lifted it out, but maybe you don't have that one.
I will find it. I'm sorry. I was getting them so
was-
fast and putting
Because
them
it was better when I took it out.
good.
It wasn't so overpowering.
Well, I think as a consideration of light to dark, it's really great to have it there. But in the size, see how it's kind of almost the size of her hair, that hair mass? That's where the competition came in. If this somehow was just almost, a smaller little patch of it, or transition to not to burnt umber, but to red sienna or a wash like this, there, that would help. But again, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't see it until it's been framed and put up. But I will find the one that you sent and at least post it on Facebook. But I just think, again, having this second layer of thumbnail, probably, I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had the two thumbnails that you showed. I showed the last slide, and then this was the next thumbnail you did. Is that correct? And then this was your finished one. And then you just tweaked this a little bit. And I'm going to put that on Facebook if I don't get it up today. But can you see how having that intermediate step helps with getting to the final? Did you feel like this helped you with the final one, Penny?
Yes. And I also, and part of the drama when I was looking at her, I was imagining that she was pregnant and her husband had left her to go traveling around the world. That's why the map was there. And I thought that was a drape over furniture. And I thought she was having to move.
Oh,
I was having a real melodramatic meaning her.
Wow.
And I thought that was a drape. I thought that, they, when people cover their stuff that they're moving, I thought that was happening to her.
well,
So
and
I felt
that's
very sorry for her.
I know, and that's why these paintings, I think, are timeless in two ways. One is just masterful handling compositionally in a paint, right? But then secondly, there's this ambiguous narrative that actually pulls at you, right? Why is this woman taking the time to either blow her nose into her hanky or read a letter? And then there's got to be a reason why this is behind there, especially in the 17th century. Having this big tapestry right off the bat was a sign of wealth. And then it's like kind of this, is it a map? Is it not? Right. And then what is this stuff in the foreground? And Vermeer in particular was really good at showing these domestic scenes with this ambiguousness. And to show space, he often would put something in the foreground and make it dark enough and out of the light to make you wonder what it is. And I just think that's probably one of the most amazing things about art and art history, is to think, this conversation we're having and wondering what this little batch is or what's going through her head, people were having the exact same conversation like 350 years ago. What's going on with this? And here we are having it again today. And who knows, people in 2250 might be looking at this painting doing the same thing. So I just think it's so cool. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there.
I just have to say, Penny, that your fabric is absolutely exquisite. The thing in the foreground looks like velvet or tapestry or something thick. And then her clothing looks like silk. I mean, it's
That's what I thought too.
absolutely
Yes.
gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Have you done anything, fabric folds or fabric textures, Penny?
Just with you, Kathy.
Oh, really? Did I teach that in the?
Yes, you did.
I did. I can't remember who I taught what. I'm sorry.
Well, they're gorgeous.
They really are. Well, it's really interesting. There's 4 or 5 different ways of a drape. It's fabric hitting a point of contact and then suspending itself from it. And so like this skirt here is called a pipe drape because the way the things fold, it's like pipes. And then this here, even though there's no baby involved, it's called a diaper fold because there's a point of contact right here and then it swoops down and it's coming up though we don't see it. Well, there's another point of contact and there'll be another one over there, like a diaper on a baby. And I forget, like the arm would be a zigzag fold. But knowing like these 3 or 4 different folds, you've really, oh good. I'm gonna pat myself on the back there.
You should, because that's exquisite.
But I learned that the month I studied in New York with a guy who was just phenomenal. His name is Dean Hartung, and showed me all that. And this is actually, I think this person does a nice job with the drapes and the bunching around the sleeve. And then,
Beautiful.
oh, isn't it? And again, this person really was bold in their approach to the tapestry behind here, using different colors and some distinctive lines. And I think it works pretty well. Let's see, they also have the fabric fold going on right here. And I believe I put this in at the last minute. I think it's Susan's. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finished it at 10 o'clock last night. Sorry.
That's all right. You're probably, after chasing around the grandbaby all day. Hey, that's impressive.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And
Well, when you see the thumbnails, you'll see, well, the one thing I don't like about this is that because I did make it dark, you really see her face and all the flaws in it. I cut off a bit of her nose, but what was the hardest was that shadow on her face.
right here. Yeah. And again, that's another reason I picked this, is that her face was a little ambiguous because again, it's like with drapery, portraiture is like 10 times harder with proportions and things, and how does the light fall in the shadow and show all these different things. But I don't know, I think you did a really nice job of handling that. If you wanted to correct the nose, you could remix that flesh and add gouache to it, and then work on lifting out some of this this darker color and then redefine the profile. And I think that will really make a colossal difference. If you wanted to as well, you could move some of this, recreate this color with a touch of gouache and maybe just a touch right here to kind of balance it out. Because again, kind of the same thing that happened with Penny. It's a little bit of a competition, but you know what, that I think the way you treated this tapestry overall though was a big gamble that still paid off.
Yeah, it's nice.
I was trying to move that blue.
Yeah. You did, and you like we were talking about, it's in the skirt, then it comes up here and then it moves around here, so you've got like this nice circle going on. And this is a nice meeting point for the blues and the browns, because then you've got the browns or the neutrals coming around here. It's almost like you've got these 2 circles going on, which is really an advanced way of doing eye travel in a painting, which is of course what you had in mind the whole time, right?
Right, of course.
And again, you got the value down here, which shows just how well it worked out. So well done.
I like the desaturated version even better.
I think it works out. And unfortunately, I can't see it as well because I've got my Zoom boxes in the way. But yeah, I remember when I pulled it up, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be in the piece, because you've got great lights and darks from what I can see, the way these work together to kind of help anchor. And then this brings your eye down and around. So yeah, I think this worked out well. All right. I believe that's.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can go back to yours if you want. Or were you going to say?
When I did the lesson in thumbnails, you didn't put that one up, but when I first did that pink, it was Pepto-Bismol. I was like, oh yeah, that's not what I want. That's why you do thumbnails. And it really made a difference when I went to this. It's a lot softer than my thumbnails started out.
Well, and actually, if you look right here, this could look a little Pepto-Bismol-y, but what you did, and you want it there, again, another successful gutsy move, and you put it under here too, was that it immediately starts to transform a little bit and become a little more of a tint. And then over here, wow, it's almost a white, which hints at the light coming in that direction. So I think that's also another strong note, a good supporting part of your painting. So, and I'm sorry I don't have your thumbnails up. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it doesn't matter. I mean, it was, believe me, it was Pepto-Bismol pink.
Well, the way you undulate that pink now really is valuable. That hint.
That's why I did it from those thumbnails, and it really taught me the value of doing them.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, let me show you the original now. There she is.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Mm.
But I really think all of you handled that quite masterfully, and you can see it's a letter there only because of the the creases in it that wouldn't have shown up when it was just a value study. But one of you, I think, was that you, Susan, who picked up on the ruffles here?
Yeah,
Great. But someone was saying they had trouble with the shadows. It's because
that was me too.
yeah, the fashion with the hair was to pull it forward in curls in front of their ears. So that's why that was hair as well as a shadow. It was kind of hard to tell when it's just in black and white. And
One theory on that was he didn't want to have to draw an ear.
yeah, that's it. But I also, talking about moving color around, here's this slate blue, and that finial is blue. So isn't that interesting? And you're right, there was the cloth. It almost looks like something sheer, but again, we don't know what it's about. And it's kind of a book there, and I don't know if those are pearls. I think they are. We will just have to go to Amsterdam.
Oh, yes, they are.
We'll have to go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam to go see it, okay?
Okay.
Well, I think that was it for that one. And I'm going to stop share. Okay. Do you see me?
No, I see everybody else.
See everybody.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and screen share to my demo camera. All right. And see if that will help. And let's see. Okay. Screen share. And I'm going to do my iPhone via cable. I do trust this computer. Okay, I see what's going on. This happened last week. This is really annoying. All right.
Well, while you're working on that, I just want to tell everybody how, because I didn't have time to work, I kept going to Facebook and watching what people were posting. And it's just, it's just been so much fun to see your work.
It really has.
It's been a great class.
And
Yes.
I'm glad y'all have enjoyed that. I would really enjoy it if my camera worked for me. I've been putting it on early. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share and try it again. I might just have to pin it, which means it won't be recorded, but we've got everybody here. I'm really sorry. I'm not sure what has happened, if my cord is broken or what, because this has worked before. Let me try one more time. And I'm glad y'all have enjoyed it.
Really have.
Good.
Very much. Yeah.
Good. I feel like I've worked you all pretty hard. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and pin. The demonstration that I'm doing today is not all that elaborate. Let me see if I can find my other camera. Okay, here I am, and you're looking at, I'm going to add a pin. So now you're looking at the side of my, I need to turn my screen around, sorry. You'd think after teaching like this for several weeks, I would get the hang of it. Okay, are you seeing a piece of paper that's got some squares on it?
Yes.
I see your arm.
Okay.
I see your arm too.
I see the paper.
Oh, well, you need to see my hand. How about that?
No.
It's a thumbnail, if I can use that word. It's
Right.
not-
If
not
we
my
pin
main
it.
screen.
We have to pin it ourselves too.
Yeah.
Yourself. And I'm going to try and unpin.
Okay.
Okay.
Remove pin. Okay. All I know is
Okay.
pretty sure this is not being recorded. Okay.
It says recorded.
It
in the
says record.
Well, it's recording probably my face, not this camera. So pay attention.
Or else.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn about making our own little color wheels based on all the different, it's going to be a primary triad. So we're using yellows and blues and reds. Okay. And I do have this in another slideshow, but so I'm not toggling back and forth. I thought I'd show you what I've done. And you're welcome to do this as well. This is a little notebook I've kept, or you could just, have your own little library hanging up. But I have taken different primaries, and then I'll make a color wheel, and then I see how many different mixtures I can get within it. And I'll put it within the color wheel or down here. And as you can see, there's one. Let me show you another. Here's another. And they can kind of change their intensity and their personality of color. Like this one's a lot different based on how you make these. Okay. And I know this looks pretty complex. We're going to work through one together. And that way.
I can only see, excuse me, I can only see a gallery view with your, what you're doing is very small.
Okay.
Double tap it to pin it.
Yeah, if you go, take your cursor and hover it.
Got it.
Got it? Okay, cool. And in fact, you know what? I think I am going to risk it and screen share this other slideshow, okay? And I'm going to do little wheels, big grid. Okay. So this is what I mean by little wheels. Like right here, I'll present this. Okay, so these are all the triangles showing which colors were there first. These are all primary color wheels. It's just that it's different blues and different reds and different yellows. And do you see how the colors that are mixed, like that green, those are 4 very different greens, right?
Mhm.
Now here, these aren't necessarily very different as purples. This is a little more muted, but not too much. And then this gets more intense. And then this is almost like a lavender, isn't it? Okay, so what I would like us to do is to mix one of these and then to see what kind of personality comes out of it. And then you can use these to select if you want to try and paint using a certain triad to get a certain mood. Okay, and now I am going to back up on this a little bit. Let me see, I'll hit a.
And Kathy, can you use any combination of red, yellow, and blue?
Yes, and in fact, we're going to pick one together in just a minute. And
Okay.
I'm being a little choppy on this, but since I started talking about these little grids, these little wheels, I thought I'd go ahead and show you some artists that have done this a little bit. And this is Claude Monet. You probably have heard of these. There's a little town on the east coast or the west coast of France called Rouen, and it's got a cathedral, this big, huge Germanic-like cathedral. And in the late 1890s, around 1895, Monet rented a room across the street from it and decided to paint it every hour of the day. And whenever I see this, it makes me think of the McDonald's around the corner, because I was there about 9 years ago. And instead of going into the cathedral, I had to take my 9-year-old who was flipping out from not having any American food. So it's a gorgeous cathedral. I just haven't seen the inside of it. Anyway, this is one he did at midday. And I want you to notice how he changes the color scheme and how it changes the sense of feel for it. Isn't that gorgeous?
Wow.
Yeah. And if you had to pick a color scheme, what would you say that was?
Sienna.
Looks complementary. It looks purple yellow.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Very tinted, but it's purple yellow. Isn't that gorgeous? And then put some oranges down here and intensified the purple. But let me show you a few more. Whoops, sorry. I'll get back to that. Look at those. Aren't they gorgeous?
Wow.
Yeah, and see, we've got an orange, kind of an orange blue thing going on here, and then a red green, and then this is almost monochromatic, but then puts in a little bit of a warm in there. And then this looks like, I'm sorry, my screen's in the way, but yeah, you've got very, very pale red and a little bit of green going on. But I thought I'd show you another thing. These are something I really could have tortured you with, but I wasn't going to do that. But I was just showing you how the same color can look very different compared to the surrounding color. Like the analogous, see this orange almost gets lost here, but then it pops out more here. And then the same thing with achromatic and saturation gray with its complement. So anyway, I think that's a little bit of what he was doing with these slides too. So you've got more of a pop here. And then this is almost, these are almost analogous as well as close to monochromatic. So it kind of fades in. And he also did this with haystacks. Isn't this kind of neat?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So he just did some gorgeous things where he took the same subject matter and then made sure he had the value and the shape and the composition consistent. And in this case, the texture, and then just went at it with the colors. So you got that red green going on here and then that yellow orange. But here it's almost, it's very muted red green. So
he was doing what we were doing with our windows and our archways at the fort.
exactly. And so here's some more of them with snow
Mm.
considerations. And yeah, I didn't want to throw this at you last week. I figured I'd already inundated you enough. Not that I'm inundating you this week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at these haystacks. They're just wonderful. And again, he did like 30 or 40 of these.
Hmm.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the primary contract. Right? So if you start to know what a primary triad is and then branching off of it, because, two triads make a secondary color, you can have a whole complex palette that you can work off of. And it also keeps the temperature and value more controlled. So that's what we're going to be working on now. And this is what I just showed you. Okay. All right. So there's the thing that this is what we're going to be working off of. And I hope you have the form nearby or you've recreated it on watercolor paper. All right.
Mhm.
And I'll show you a couple of these that I just showed you over the other camera that might help a little bit. So you see these side by side, how these are all primary triads, but they all have very different feels. Like this is more kind of light, warm. And you can see I wrote it down here. This is kind of, it might be light, maybe medium, but it's much cooler. And that's because the yellow, look at the different yellows. That really changes the whole triad. And then of course we've got, well, everything's different in this triad. But if you come over here, this is the same alizarin, right? But this yellow is somewhat close. Yellow pale and Hansa are close, but Prussian and Ultra are a little bit different. So do you see how each one makes its own color families? So that's what I would like to do right now. Whoops, sorry, I accidentally went.
This is the struggle that I had with the third window, because I had put myself in the box of picking 3 primaries and sticking to them. And when I went to mix the primaries I'd chosen to make a green,
right,
I couldn't get a green. I could only get a yellow green. And, I did not have to put myself in that box. It was a personal choice and I should have stepped out of it, but I'm stubborn. And I realized after the fact, idiot, change your yellow and you change your world.
Right. But this is what we can do. There's always wiggle room. There's always ways, I don't want to say cheat, but there's ways to work around, even with a strict triad. And so that's what I'd like us to do together is work with the same triad. But I want us all to democratically, so we get to vote, women here now, what yellow, red, and blue you want to use. And then I'm going to show you what the workaround can be when. Okay.
Oh, good.
You won't get stuck with baby poop green or whatever. But so think about the yellows, the blues, and the reds that we have worked with, or I've asked you to buy. And I'd like you, well, let's talk about the yellows first. I think we have talked about them a bit. There's lemon yellow and like a cad yellow light, and I think a Hansa or something like that. Is there? Okay. Someone pick a yellow for me.
I like the lemons.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. So lemon, let's do lemon. And it's a nice
Hansa has an orange cast to my eye.
Yes, it does.
Warmer, isn't it? So this is a cool yellow, which means this will be a little bit cooler or neutral, depending on what our other blues are going to go. Okay. So right now, and I've got my palette over here, I'm going to go ahead. And you can use just your cake, but since we're going to be mixing for a little bit, I might squeeze out, a nice little dab of my yellow, okay? And then I'm gonna just paint that yellow leg in, that yellow box. So a little bit of water. And paint in that. Okay.
So you used your yellow medium?
I'm using my lemon yellow.
I'm sorry, lemon yellow?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And then I'm just leaving it over here to the side so I won't forget. So I'll be squeezing this out. And in fact, I'm going to label this right now, lemon. Okay. I don't know if you can see this too well. Can you see what I'm doing?
Oh, yeah, now I can.
Right. All right. So how about a blue leg? I know some things we've talked about have been Prussian and ultramarine, which are pretty close. I also have cerulean here, and I don't know where my cobalt is. I might be able to find it, but does anyone have any recommendations of a blue they'd like to see? And we can do a vote if we need to.
Well, I thought the cobalt because we hadn't used it, but if you can't find it, that's
okay.
something.
In fact, I'm going to come over here. These drawers, I love them because what I've done is I've stuck tacks in my drawer, in the door, and see, I hang up my paint. So I think, yep, there's my cobalt. So that's been my pandemic organization for my.
Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah, see, I guess I needed to have that to make it work. Do you guys have cobalt?
Yes.
Yes, great. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to squeeze out a bunch of cobalt, and I'm kind of recreating my palette right over here. Again, if you have hard cakes or when you get used to this, you can mix this without using the fresh paint if you want. You know, you just dab it wet. And then I'm going to take my brush, and I've cleaned it. And then I'm going to put in my blue leg. And I bet you're probably like, wow, I paid Kathy all this money to just do a coloring page exercise. This is great. Now, I don't know how this is all going to turn out temperature and everything wise since we're picking the colors together. So this is kind of exciting for me. All right, so we have got cobalt. I'll write that down here, maybe underneath my blue. Okay, so see, that's what I've got so far. And now, what should we do for the red leg? We've got, let's see, because I think I had you guys buy permanent rose, didn't I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and we've already talked about burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and cad red. Would you want to see how?
Do the permanent
Yes.
rose. That'll be
Yes, that'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I made a mistake. I inverted my color wheel on my palette, but it really doesn't matter. But yeah, I like this rose. It's a little bit, not quite as strong as alizarin. It's a little more transparent.